Okay, there we go. Uh, Good to see you all. Um, Hi, Mikhail just arrived. Uh, no need to tell anyone here what's happening. You're all long-time participants. Let's begin to try to set a motivation with some great prayers. Sangye churang soki chognam la changchu badu dagni kyapsu chi dagi chunyen gipe sognam ki drola benche sangye drupa shog. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. Through the collections I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit migrating beings. Sangye churang soki chognam la changchu badu dagni kyapsu chi dagi chunyen gipe sognam ki drola penche sangye drupa sho. Okay, so question, uh, how do you take refuge in the Supreme Assembly? Oh, I'm not in gallery view here. I want to see. Uh, Yeah, I can't see who's going to answer. Does anyone have a, Louise, what do you think? How do you take refuge in the Supreme Assembly? Because of the prayer we just, I go for refuge
Having,
until I'm into the Buddhist Dharma and the Supreme Assembly.
having freed themselves, showing the path to freedom. So
How
it's
do you take refuge in them? So how you take
um,
refuge in the Buddha is following his advice, the Dharma, and aiming to become Buddha. How you take refuge in the Dharma is treating it as uh, medicine. How do you take refuge in the Supreme Assembly? We don't see anyone around here at Supreme Assembly, right? Maybe we have them uh, memorialized like in the Tanka, the merit field and so forth. So anyway, something to think about. So then mandala offering. By offering this ground anointed with perfume and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun and moon, visualized as a Buddha realm, may all migrators enjoy a pure realm. O holy and perfect pure Lama, from the clouds of compassion that form in the skies of your Dharmakaya wisdom, please release a rain of vast and profound Dharma precisely in accordance of the needs of those to be trained. Idam Guru Radna Mandalakam Niryatayami. Okay. Hi, Richard has just arrived. So we're going to begin with a little meditation as usual. Relax your body, relax your mind. Place your mindfulness on the breathing in front. So you know what that means. That means to the exclusion of other competing conceptual thoughts, what multitasking, whatever you might be thinking about. Withdraw your attention from those and place it on the just watching, being mindful of the respiration. If your mind balks, is resistant to meditating of the breathing, thinking, oh, I could be thinking of so many more interesting thoughts, some kind of temptation to be thinking of other things. Just think, you can integrate here for a short time, reminding yourself all the collection of all things ends in dispersal, collecting wealth and power and so forth, possessions. They eventually have to be given away, if not during this life, lost during this life, at the time of death. All friendships, all meetings of a friend will, at the very moment you meet them, it's inevitable that you'll separate. Whatever rises conventionally, increases, will eventually fall. What goes up must come down. And the end of being born is death. So like that, these are reflected in the breathing, because we're alternating between inhalation and exhalation. Any inhalation ends in exhalation. With your mind a little bit calmed, bring your attention to your mental consciousness through the observation of its content, because the nature of the mind itself is very subtle, so difficult to apprehend at first. We apprehend it through seeing the cloud-like contents within it, and then letting go of those and starting to get an intuition about the clear light nature of the mind within which those images and thoughts are arising. You don't have to create the clear light nature of your mind. It's there from the beginning. The lack of any hindrance to the removal of content from your mind. There's no molasses-like, honey-like resistance. Like when a fly falls into the honey, it can't immediately fly out. It's sort of stuck in there. The mind is not like that. If you apply the correct antidotes, you can get rid of all of the faults. And if you apply the right thinking, contemplation, you can develop all of the positive states of mind. This is our developmental Buddha nature, conventional Buddha nature. Not everyone can recognize it, And the fact that we can recognize it and feel some joy in this, that we have this, is due to this life of leisure and endowment. The Buddha called this auspicious moment. Just like a snap of the fingers, this life amongst the enormity of past and future lives. We have this, for this short time, some clarity in our mind to see what's right and what's wrong, what's beneficial in the long term, beyond the appearances of this life. I think I've created the karma for this opportunity right now. I've created the karma for it in many past lives, many contributory actions that I did, of praying, of wanting to help others, being generous, being patient, and so forth, practicing morality and generosity, causes of a life of leisure and endowment. What I can use this for right now goes beyond what I have been using it for up till now. Generally, up till now, before we met the Dharma, certainly, we used it just for we use this life just for the increasing of appearances of plenty, attachment to the 8 worldly dharmas, conceiving of them as important. Now, letting that aside, thinking of the bigger picture, I can use this life to get closer to enlightenment, closer to liberation. And of the two, the Buddha advised his more intelligent disciples not to be satisfied with his Hinayana teachings alone, his lesser vehicle teachings alone. Lesser vehicle is that which brings you to the solitary experience of your own nirvana, whereas the great vehicle, the Mahayana, big in size and with great endurance to bring you and all sentient beings to the great destination of enlightenment. That requires the development of bodhicitta, which is a mind that we may never have heard of before Buddhism, a mind which is thinking to achieve enlightenment, from which state we can perfectly lead others out of suffering, to be of the greatest benefit for them, much more than, the great benefit that one could offer to others as a teacher or a doctor. And then expanding our understanding of that by thinking of not only the suffering nature of my own samsara, but the suffering nature of all mother sentient beings samsara, all of them who've been our mother in numberless lives in the past and have been depthlessly kind. They are experiencing the 3 kinds of suffering: suffering of suffering, changeable suffering, pervasive, compounded suffering. Even if they have some temporary success that we might be jealous of, some wealth, or they were born with an attractive body or healthy body, they've accrued power, sometimes mercilessly. All of them will eventually have to die and experience in the future numberless lives in cyclic existence if they don't escape first, if they don't achieve liberation or enlightenment. To become a Buddha for their sake, we have to accumulate the two collections of merit and wisdom, which are the cooperative causes of achieving the two bodies, the Rupakaya and the Dharmakaya. So merit, our collection of merit on the conventional level, gives rise to our eventual achievement of the two form bodies of the Buddha, the Rupakayas, the Nirmanakaya and Sambhogakaya, and the collection of wisdom give rise to the wisdom Dharmakaya. And incidentally, it's emptiness, which is called the Svavavikakaya, the nature body. The way to collect, to accumulate merit and wisdom are explained in the Buddhist sutras, especially the Prajnaparamita sutras about wisdom, which were explained by Nagarjuna, commented on by, or that clarified by Chandrakirti, Nagarjuna's words, in his various texts. And closer to us in time, Lama Tsong, even though many centuries ago, clarified it even more clearly in his Gompa Rapso. So think I'm going to participate in the class, listening, contemplating, meditating, in order to develop the skillful means to accumulate merit and wisdom, in order to achieve enlightenment for the sake of all mother sentient beings. That's my goal. Okay, so bring your attention back to the present. Hi, Karen, good to see you. Anyone else just drop in? Okay. So how are we doing? Anyone have any burning questions, any Dharma itch they need scratched before we begin? Mikhail, anything? You've moisturized your Dharma dermis. Richard, everything okay? Okay, good. Stephen? Okay. Oh, so Nadine has something she wants to say.
Thank you, Venerable George. You asked us to think about the verse from the meeting of Father and Son Sutra.
Yes.
And I wonder if it's essentially the same meaning as the verse on the end of the Vajrakata Sutra as a star, a visual aberration, a lamp, dew, an illusion. Is it the same meaning?
What are the words in the meeting of the Father and Son Sutra that you're referring to?
Just as a reflection of a form with no intrinsic existence appears in a clear mirror, so understand phenomena such as trees.
Yeah, right. So I explain that that translation where it says such as trees is wrong. The Sanskrit word is duma, lomba, I think in Tibetan, which is the name of the king of the Kinnaras, who is the interlocutor with the Buddha. The Buddha is asking him questions there. So that translation of Jimpa should be leave off the word tree there. So it just means Duma, you should see all phenomena like this. So that's mainly talking about one of those examples of the verse in the Vajracetaka, in the Vajracutter Sutra that you quoted, that we've talked about before. We've mentioned the commentaries on it. I think there was a commentary by the Geshe, the dear Geshe who passed away at Shravasti Abbey. Someone mentioned, I think Ron had mentioned that at one time. But there was also Geshe Tekchok's commentary, extensive commentary in his book about emptiness on that. So those examples in the Vajracetaka verse include other kinds of things, but the verse that you just quoted from the Meeting of the Father and Son Sutra is just one portion of that, I think. Okay. So now, Brother Ron mentioned, sent an email to me asking to clarify something that we had encountered in our previous class. And I wonder if, let's see, yeah, so it is up in the chat. I'm not sure everyone got there in time. It's called Illumination/Purgative. I'd left off the R before purgative. Elimination purgative of I don't know what, all views or something like that. Yeah. So here, first of all, is if you do all of you are all of you able to see that PDF? Anyone not able to? Okay. So let's read along right there. So this is from Karen Lang's, the great scholar Karen Lang, who Paul knew. I think I met Karen once or twice at University of Virginia. Where is she now, Paul?
She's retired. She's still living in Charlottesville. You actually met her at the Tengyur conference in Sarnath as well. She was there.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Second time. Yeah. I think I've met her a couple of times. So she wrote this book called The Four Illusions. So on pages 5 to 6, which Ron kindly sent photos of, it says the following: in the Mula Majjhimika Karika, did I say that right? Mula Majjhimaka Karika. So what is that? That's fundamental wisdom, right? Mula means fundamental or root. So sometimes in Bodh Gaya, when people want to go to the Root Institute, which is way outside, sort of the suburb, if some of the rickshaw drivers who don't speak English well, they don't know what you're talking about. And if you say mula, which means root, right? They say, oh, mula, and they start, you jump in the rickshaw and head off there. So in the Mula Majjhimaka Karikas, Nagarjuna refers to an early Mahayana scripture, the Kashyapya Parivarta. So Kashyapya was one of the Buddha's disciples, right? In which the Buddha speaks of the therapeutic value of emptiness. This is what Ron had pointed out. In this text, the Buddha asks Kashyapya to determine if a patient would be cured under these circumstances. These circumstances being, a doctor gives medicine to the patient, but after it cures his symptoms, his or her symptoms, it remains in his bowels without being expelled, without being purged. If it remains, Kashyapya replies, the patient's problems would become worse. The Buddha encourages him to regard emptiness in the same way. Nagarjuna similarly regards emptiness as a therapeutic antidote to the ill effects of the attachment to views. And so in this context, he quotes, Karen quoted from the Mula Majjhima Karika, that's MMK. So X11 means the 13th chapter, and 8 means the 8th verse, which is the chapter on the examination of compounded phenomena. Remember, each of the chapters of fundamental wisdom deals with a different topic. So this verse says, in her translation, in Karen's translation, the Buddhas have said that emptiness is a purgative for all views, but they have said that those who hold emptiness as a view are incurable. And I have added just below that the Tibetan, in case you're fluent enough in Tibetan by now to follow. So Gelwa Namgi, Gelwa means the jinas, the conquerors or the victorious ones, right? So that's plural. They have taught that the elimination of all views. Well, I said using the translation from Sumpton and Garfield, which is just below that. It says the victorious ones have said, or the conquerors have said, that emptiness is the elimination of all views. Anyone for whom emptiness is a view is incorrigible, or as Karen had said, incurable. So neither of them are literally right there. It says, in Tibetan, it says, Deda Druptu Mebar Sung. Druptu, which looks, maybe if you don't know Tibetan, you say, where does he get drup? This is BSGRUB in the second, or in the fourth line of that, the Tibetan, Druptu Mebar. So they are without accomplishment. So they are incurable or incorrigible. So Karen's commentary to that says, emptiness functions like a laxative to free blockages of the mind. After it has accomplished its purpose, there is no reason to continue using it. This is her take on that. Is that true? After it has accomplished its purpose, what would be the purpose of taking the medicine of, or the laxative of emptiness? She says, to free blockages of the mind. So that means the Buddhas, once they've meditated on emptiness and achieved Buddhahood, they don't have to meditate on emptiness any longer. Maybe she doesn't have it. That's her own take on that. Nagarjuna caustically suggests that people who hold on to emptiness will be no better off than the unfortunate patient with chronic constipation. Those who hold on to emptiness. So hold on, maybe like still in your bowels. Is that like that? That's not the meaning here. Hold on is referring to those who consider emptiness itself to be inherently existent, to grasp on it as being inherently existent. We'll see in a moment with another translation of this. He further condemns, that means Nagarjuna further condemns the destructive psychological effects of attachment to views in his Yukti Shastika. Did I pronounce that right? Yukti Shastika. So that's the Rikpa Chuchuma, the 60 stanzas on reasoning by Nagarjuna. So he further comments on the destructive psychological effects of attachment to views in the 60 verses on logic. He warns in verses 47 to 51 that engaging in divisive debates makes people vulnerable to attack by the, quote, snakes of the afflictions, the snakes of the klesha, the delusions. The snake of desire poisons debaters who want their own views to succeed, and the snake of anger attacks them when their opponent's views prevail. So this is one of the reasons I mentioned that, one of the pitfalls of debating at the beginning, unless you have an altruistic motivation in debating, you can come across out of competitive mind, attachment to your own, renown and so forth, to try to win the debate at any cost. That's you've been overcome by the snake of desire, or angry at others who hold some different view than you. So that's the section that Ron was asking about. Okay, so to clarify that, I've taken the commentary to that verse. So that's the Mula Madhyamaka Karika, chapter 13, verse 8, right? From Nagarjuna's text. So Lama Tsongkhapa's Rikpe Gyatso, Ocean of Reasoning, is a commentary, word commentary, to Chandrakirti's Prasanapada. I think enough of you have heard this enough times that you're following what I'm saying. His clearly worded commentary to Nagarjuna's text. So in that, Lama Tsongkhapa said the following, at least according to the translation of Geshe Nawan Samten and J. Garfield. So if you have that text, you can see on page 298. This is within the chapter 13 examination of compounded phenomena. So the way they translated that verse was the victorious ones, Karen had just said the Buddhas, we could say the conquerors, have said that emptiness is the elimination of all views. Takun ngepar jungwagyur. So is the definite removal of all views. Or maybe you can say, can you say definitely removes all views, Paul? Rather than saying is the elimination? Could you say
No, I think it would have to be in the passive. Are definitely removed or yeah.
So that emptiness is the elimination of all views or eliminates all views. Anyone for whom emptiness is a view is incorrigible. So it's meant to get rid of views that are grasping at phenomena in various ways. The fundamental bad view here, wrong view, is grasping them to be inherently existent. So if you instead use that to get rid of these other views, but you hold emptiness itself to be inherently existent, you are incurable. You won't be able to accomplish anything. You are incorrigible. So here, the interesting analogy will be coming here. Before that, Mikhail, you have an observation, a question?
Yeah, I was wondering if is it a coincidence or is it? I don't think so. But Nagarjuna here uses Ngeparjung, which is exactly a definite emergence, what we translate as renunciation.
Right, right. So that's one way of translating Gejung, renunciation. Literally, it means to emerge, definitely emerge from the life of a layperson and into the life of a monk. So sometimes it's just called renunciation. Even just leaving home, when the Buddha left home from this castle and he cut off his hair at the stupa and went off to be a mendicant trying to find the meaning of samsara, how to get out of samsara. That was called the Great Renunciation, the Great Ngejong. What is that in Sanskrit, Paul? Do you know? Do we have any other Sanskrit?
Yeah, Natron, that would be
Oh, sorry to put you on the spot. Yeah, no,
no, I just,
that's
yeah.
it is not important. So, Mikhail, it does have those various meanings. Sometimes in some of the verses in tantric initiations, when it says it's whenever Haruka emerges from Ngejung, emerges from the Dharma Dhatu, to show his physical form is an auspicious moment. So that the Ngejung comes in various contexts like that. So here it can mean to definitely remove or to definitely emerge. So the commentary to this in Lama Tsongkhapa's commentary says, you poor man, having succumbed to serious deviant views and having abandoned the direct path that leads to the city of liberation, you are constricted by the serpent of fixation on entityhood and entityness. You don't find those in the dictionary, so that's your spell check if you were to put that in a word processor, it would flag those words. So a fixation on some kind of findable entity as truly existent. Thus you wander in cyclic existence, regarding the path into the forest of cyclic existence as the path to liberation. So because of your wrong view, holding phenomena as inherently existent or truly existent, you are wandering in cyclic existence, regarding the path into the forest of cyclic existence as the path to liberation. So what's the path into the forest of cyclic existence? Well, maybe 8 worldly dharmas and, following your fixation upon the appearances of this life as being real and true and so forth. Subject to condemnation by the noble ones, instead you condemn them. Hey, I think this is probably Jay Garfield's translation of what was ever there. Hey, the great Lord of physicians, that means the Buddha, the great Lord of physicians and of the victors, I guess that means the Lord of physicians and the Lord of victors, has said that emptiness is the view that allows one to abandon and to eliminate all grasping. So that could be understood when it says the elimination of all views, to eliminate them, to abandon them. That's what that means. This is the mere relinquishing of all views regarding things as truly existent. And a mere relinquishing does not exist inherently. So, thus it is said that anyone who regards emptiness as inherently existent will accomplish nothing. That's the Druptu Mepa that they said is incorrigible or incurable. They will accomplish nothing. That is, he is incurable. So here's the nice analogy here. This is similar to a case where someone says to you, I have no goods to give you. Right? If some beggar comes to your door and you say, I have nothing to give you, I have no material to give you, and that person says, where are we? And the other person says, give me what you call no goods. Yeah. You say, I've got nothing to give you. They say, well, give me nothing. Right? The two masters say that this opponent is like the one who cannot be convinced that he does not have any goods. Okay, this person who is holding on to views, when in order to convince the other person that he has no goods to give, he utters that sentence, I have no goods to give you. It is not that he cannot be convinced, but the idea that he has no quote, no goods, quote unquote, the idea that those are themselves goods should not arise. He shouldn't have when you say you have no goods to give, you shouldn't think that the no goods to give are goods, are something material, you know. Do you follow? Is it making sense? So in other words, when you say things are empty, you know, you have nothing inherent to give, you shouldn't think then that that itself is something kind of findable, material. So the method of the application of the example to that which it illustrates, in the case of whoever views emptiness is incurable, that's the verse, how you apply this analogy is, as the sutra puts it, and here's a quote from the Kashyapya Parivarta Sutra. So Buddha is talking to Kashyapya. Kashyapya, it is like this. For example, there is a sick man and the physician gives him some medicine, and the medicine cures his illness completely. If that medicine remains in his stomach and is not expelled, what do you think, Kashyapya? Has that person really been cured? So this is referring to the medicine of emptiness, but still, when it says not purging it, you know, that it still remains, that means that you're still grasping to it as being inherently existent. Has that person really been cured? Kashyapya responds, "Oh, transcendent Lord," I think it's probably Bhagavan. "Oh, Bhagavan, of course not. That person is not cured. Even if that medicine has cured his illness completely, if the medicine is not expelled from his stomach, that man's stomach ache would be wrenching." The Bhagavan then replied, "O Kashyapya, in exactly the same way, when emptiness is that which eliminates all views, I call someone incurable who does not adopt emptiness, who adopts emptiness as a view." You know, I say that someone who adopts emptiness as a view, who holds emptiness as a view, that means they hold onto it as being inherently existent, I deem them as incurable. The medicine cured his previous indigestion, but then due to its own indigestibility, gave rise to a new sickness. So that when, you know, the view of emptiness cured his other views, but because he was still holding on to emptiness as being inherently existent, it gave rise to a new sickness. This example represents the two Buddhist reificationist schools' thesis that selflessness truly exists, and the thesis of several previous scholars from the land of snow, which note 12 right there, the number 12 in that text is referring to. Perhaps this is talking about some of the great scholars that had misinterpreted this. So what does that mean? The two Buddhist reificationist schools. What do you imagine, Richard? What does reificationist or reify mean?
Well, I think it means literally turning into stone. But I think I think that what's meant here is making what we know is empty to be perceived as inherently existent.
Yeah, so usually reify is.
Did I get that right? I guess not.
Say again?
Diana raised her hand, and she's the expert on things like that. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. So reify generally means to add something. What do you say, Diana?
I typed this into chat many classes ago, and somebody said actually that's helpful. My French teacher taught us that to reify is to thingify.
To thingify.
Yes, to take something and to regard it as a thing.
A thing. You're pronouncing it well so that we know what you're saying. So yeah, so reify in that's true, but also can mean to add something which is not really there. So when you or in other words, you superimpose something which is not there. So when it talks about the two Buddhist reificationist schools.
And it also has the meaning very more specifically of solidifying something that ought not to be.
Yes. Okay. So you're adding something, solidifying it that should not be solidified. So this is referring to what two schools, do you think? Anyone have an idea?
Tantrika?
Who's it? Richard?
Yeah.
What did you say?
Svatantrika and Satrantrika?
Svatantrika Madhyamika?
Yeah.
Yeah? You think?
Well, don't they inherently existence conventionally?
Don't they claim that all phenomena are empty of true existence, the Svatantrikas? I mean, they're Madhyamikas, right? So the special feature of Madhyamika is not to reify phenomena as being truly existent. I think it referring to the two Hinayana schools, Vaibhashika and Sautrantika. Anyway, you can think about that. Let's see. Let's say this example represents the two Buddhist reificationist schools' thesis that selflessness truly exists. So that shows that's talking about the Vaibhashika and Sautrantika, because yeah. And the thesis of several previous scholars of the land of snow, that although the thesis that things can withstand ultimate analysis has been refuted, so ordinary things in the world cannot withstand ultimate analysis. That is, if you check within their basis of imputation, you can't find the object imputed. That would mean to withstand that analysis. You know, you analyze it and you can find something there. So there's nothing that can withstand ultimate analysis. So the thesis that things can withstand ultimate analysis has been refuted. Emptiness, even though you've refuted that things can withstand ultimate analysis, still emptiness truly exists, they think. You know, you're holding emptiness itself to be truly existent. Realizing emptiness as that which refutes the object of negation, right? The object of negation is some kind of true existence. Emptiness refutes that. Where are we? Realizing emptiness as that which refutes the object of negation eliminates many of the manifest illnesses of affliction, but grasping emptiness as truly existent gives rise to the illness of the afflictions. Because you're again creating the afflictions on a more subtle level if you still think that emptiness itself is truly existent. This is all commentary from Lama Tsongkhapa. For those who take either of the two other approaches, taking things as empty or taking things as non-empty, while taking things as empty is the way, while taking things as empty in this way is not refuted by authoritative cognition, by valid cognition, it becomes deprecation. Since it does not correspond to the previous example, taking things as non-empty also gives rise to the illness of affliction. So if you hold either of these, views as truly existent, that again leads to the afflictions. So I wanted to share that with you because we had mentioned this section from Karen Lang's text, and this thing about purgative and laxative, it seemed a bit strange, like you had to get rid of the view of emptiness. It doesn't mean that. It means that you have to get rid of holding emptiness as being truly existent. How are we doing? Make sense, Stephen? Enough clarification? Okay. So, getting back to Gompa Rapsel, we are at the point in Thupten Jinpa's text where he says, at this point in the commentary, Chandrakirti cites the passage from Fundamental Wisdom, where Nagarjuna states that the agent and the acts done by that agent are like when the Buddha manifests one emanation, who in turn manifests another emanation. So this is in Thupten Jinpa's text, the written text, page 275, unless I'm mistaken, and on the FPMT text, page 152, when Venerable Jones' translation, that is found in, where is that on that page? 152. Venerable Jones says, fundamental wisdom says that it is just as the emanations of the teacher. Is that the right page? Yeah. Right. So it's just about a third of the way down, just after a list of two things there. Okay, so that's what we're talking about right now. At this point in his commentary, that means in the Chandrakirti's Bhasham, Chandrakirti cites the passages from Fundamental Wisdom, where Nagarjuna states that the agent and the acts done are like when the Buddha manifests one emanation, who in turn manifests another emanation. So his note 515 is just quoting the very place in the text where that is mentioned. Thus, quote unquote, Chandrakirti writes, Nagarjuna has shown how things with no intrinsic existence do arise from no intrinsic existence. And that note 516, again, just refers to the place in the commentary. Chandrakirti's point is that when everyday function is posited in a context of non-intrinsic existence, or how do we say it? No inherent existence, there is no danger of falling into nihilism or nihilism. Making sense? What do you think, Don? You have the California look of, yeah, kind of like, yeah.
No, I'm following so far.
Okay, good, okay. Okay. How are we doing? Okay. So, in other words, the lower schools would like to say, if things are not inherently existent or non-intrinsically existent, how can they give rise to results? They would like to think that for something to be a functioning thing, to emanate something, you have to have something which the emanator has to be inherently existent. But as it says here, where do we say? When the Buddha manifests one emanation, which in turn manifests another emanation. So when the Buddha himself is not truly existent, right? Not inherently existent, but still can emanate, create emanations, which they themselves can subsequently emanate other things, right? So I mentioned in, I think last week, sometimes in this, it is mentioned that some of the disciples of Buddha, when he taught, were actually his emanations, and they might emanate other beings around them as their entourage, as their retinue, as their students, and so forth. So all of this is possible if phenomena, from the Prasangika point of view, if phenomena are not inherently existent, still this can happen. So the text continues. In brief, if one fails to negate existence by virtue of intrinsic characteristic on the conventional level, if one fails to negate inherent existence on the conventional level, that's what we've been talking about, right? Svatantrika wants to say there's no inherent existence on the ultimate level, but conventionally there is inherent existence. There is intrinsic existence by virtue of intrinsic characteristic. You can find something on the conventional level. If you fail to negate that, one will fail to realize the extremely subtle level of selflessness. So you won't be, you will be negating some level of selflessness, some gross level of selflessness, but not the subtle, extremely subtle level of selflessness that's necessary to achieve even liberation, let alone enlightenment. Text continues, it would also become difficult to ensure that the subtlest degrees of eternalist and nihilist views do not arise within one's mind. It's difficult to ensure. That means they will, some degree of eternalist view, that there's something kind of existing there from its own side, or a nihilist view that nothing exists at all. It will be difficult to prevent those from arising in your mind. Therefore, the benefit that comes from eliminating that object of negation on the conventional level. What's that object of negation? Karen, do you know? You're muted, so I can kind of try to read your lips, but.
Sorry, I hit the space bar.
Yeah.
In this case, emptiness, they're talking about emptiness as being inherent, existent.
Yeah, it's if it's difficult, so therefore the benefit that comes from eliminating that object of negation on the conventional level. So on the conventional level, it would mean like the Svatantrikas neglect, or they're incapable of negating inherent existence by virtue of its own characteristic. What that means is they think on the conventional level, you can find the object imputed within the basis of designation. Therefore, the benefit that comes from eliminating that object of negation on the conventional level is the relinquishing of all eternalist and nihilist views without any residue, without anything left. So you get rid of all of the bad things. If you can negate inherent existence even on the conventional level. That was what this whole section here that Chandrakirti has been mentioning in the Madhyamakavatara, his own like riff on, criticizing the Svatantrika view that on the conventional level, there is some inherent existence. If such an existence is negated on the conventional level, one will not only avoid falling into eternalist and nihilist views with respect to the ultimate truth, one will escape from being soiled by the stains of eternalist and nihilist views with respect to conventional truth as well. It thus has the merit of easily abandoning the views of eternalism and nihilism. Okay, so Chandrakirti and Lama Tsongkhapa have flogged that horse till it has fallen to the ground. Okay, how are we doing? Making sense? What do you think, Mikhail?
Oh, I think it's great.
Okay, yeah. Then
It's great,
Doris,
yeah.
Doris has her thumb up there. She's agreeing with you. Okay, so now the next section. Now we're getting into very, very interesting material that we talked about before, talking about the uncommon tenets of the Prasangika. So I didn't bring that other book with me. So here the next section is called The Merit of How Cause and Effect Become Most Tenable. So I think when it says the merit, I think this is, I don't have the Tibetan, because it actually just, in the Tibetan text, it just says Nipa Lasum. That means the second outline. I have to go back to see, I think it's talking about Yundan. So the good qualities of how cause and effect become most tenable or completely acceptable, right? So from the lower school's point of view, if things aren't inherently existent, how can cause and effect work? The cause has to be inherently existent, and so forth and so on. That's what people think. So this has three parts. Part one, someone who does not assert intrinsic existence need not accept foundation consciousness. So what is foundation consciousness, Rachel? Do you know what is meant? So this is what the Tibetans call kunshi, and in Sanskrit is alaya vijnana. Is that putting the pronunciation on the right syllables, Paul?
Yeah, Alaya Vijnana.
Alaya vijnana. So someone who does not assert intrinsic existence, so someone who does not accept that phenomena are inherently existent, they don't need to accept alaya vijnana, the foundation consciousness that the Chittamatra and some Svatantrika believe is where the karmic seeds are placed. Okay, you don't have to accept that. There's a way of explaining how karma continues without alaya vijnana. And then second outline is illustrating by analogy how effects come into being from cessation of actions. So here the cessation of actions is what's called shikpa. I can't remember, what is that? Nashta, I think is in Sanskrit, something like that. So here, cessation of action, that means, let's say you're doing the action of generosity. Let's use a positive example. When the object that you are giving is accepted by the other person, it's out of your hand and they've accepted it and recognize it, that's called the completion of the action, right? The karmic action of giving, or the karmic action of murder, killing, let's say, is when the other person dies before you, right? They always have that proviso in there, before you, because if you're in a duel and you shoot the other person, they're going to die, but they shot you also, and you die before them. You don't accrue the action of killing, right? The full action of killing. They died before you. So illustrating by analogy how effects come into being from cessation of action. So the very cessation of an action from the Prasangika point of view is a functioning thing. It continues on. How effects come into being from the cessation of actions. In the third outline, rejecting objections to this presentation. Okay, so some people are going to criticize the Prasangika view. So first of all, someone who does not assert intrinsic existence need not accept foundation consciousness. So here you have to understand, that's the main thing that's being talked about now. It is a refutation of alaya vijnana, the foundation consciousness. This has three parts. Again, more outlines. Explaining the commentary's transitional passage. In Tibetan, we say samjor. So Chandrakirti was writing in Sanskrit long time ago. The Tibetan sort of tradition of having these outlines is something that came later. In the Sanskrit treatises, in the Shastras, for instance, the commentaries by the great beings that were closer to the Buddha in time, that the Tibetans depend on for their interpretation of sutras and commentaries and so forth. When they went from one topic to another, they didn't say, now there's a new outline, number 3, 4, whatever. They had some transitional passages. So that's what's being talked about here. Explaining the commentary's transitional passage, how we get to this point. 2, second outline, explaining the meaning of the words of the root text and discussing related issues arising from that. Okay, so first of all, explaining the commentary's transitional passage. So the commentary means Chandrakirti's auto commentary on his karikas, right? The Madhyamakavatara Bhashyam. So the commentary, the Bhashyam says, in this way, because things do not have intrinsic existence on the level of both truths, that's what Chandrakirti has been pounding for the last many pages, right? That there is no inherent existence on the ultimate level, which the Svatantrika accept, but there's also no inherent existence on the conventional level. So on both truths. In this way, because things do not have intrinsic existence on the level of both truths, one casts aside, one dispels views of eternalism and nihilism far away. Not only that, so here's the transition, not only that, it becomes acceptable, tenable, to maintain that karmic acts, even if committed long before, remain connected to their effects without conceiving such notions as foundation consciousness, mental continuum, non-corrosion, Jimpa translates, or obtainment, or sometimes we translate also attainment, toba. So that's the transition. So he says, he's just reiterating. So not only if you can refute intrinsic existence, you get rid of all wrong views of eternalism and nihilism, but beyond that, you're able to explain how karmic acts, let's say the generosity or the killing or whatever, even it was committed a long time ago, other lives, thousands, millions of lives before, still can give an effect later. So that's generally a problem, right? When the karma, is karma a permanent or impermanent phenomena, Richard?
I was just wondering that myself. I'm going to guess impermanent because you can get rid of it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you can get rid of it, but even permanent things, you can get rid of, even permanent things can become non-existent, right? Like say, for instance, the emptiness of a vase. When the vase breaks, there's no longer the emptiness of the vase. So it doesn't have to be that. But karma itself means action. Action is something which you have a cause and you bring about an effect. You slice someone with a knife, or you shoot them with a gun, or you give them a coffee or a sack of gold. There's some kind of causation going on there. There's some kind of impermanent phenomena. Generally, karma is impermanent. It's changing. So once it has ceased, once the action has ceased, the completion of the act, how is it that then later there can be an effect of that? So what's the example? When you give something, you give a loaf of bread to the Buddha, in many of the sutras, someone will make an offering to the Buddha, and the Buddha will say, as a result of this karma, in the future, you will be born as King so-and-so, or you will become Pratika Buddha in this universe, and so forth, as though there is a connection between this cause And this result comes way in the future. In between, there's nothing, right? The action has ceased, the giving has ceased. How is it that then later the result can come? Have you thought about this, Sean?
Probably not enough.
Not enough. Okay. What do you think, Louise? How is it that the karma can have a result? The karma that you created many lifetimes ago can have a result in the future.
Grows like a wave or something, but what grows? I don't know, but it expands.
Okay. What do you think, Nadine?
It's because of the karmic seed, which ripens when the conditions are there. The conditions.
So Chandrakirti is going to he would be critical of us for saying that, but that's generally when we talk about it in the Lan Rim, we talk about when you create an action, you leave a karmic seed. That action has ceased, but in ceasing, it leaves a seed in our consciousness, right? Karmic seed. So when we talk about general explanation of the 12 limbs of dependent arising, right? What is it? Ignorance. What's the first link is ignorance. That gives rise to what? What's the second link? Stephen, do you know?
I'm blanking.
Oh, but Richard knows.
Karmic foundations, karmic
Formation, yeah. So that's karma. And as a result of that, when that ceases, that leaves an imprint in the consciousness, right? That's the general interpretation of the 12 links. So that's a general view how when an action has ceased, it will have, it's still, there can be effect in the future because upon its cessation of the action, it left a imprint, a seed in the consciousness, a karmic seed, which then has those various qualities of increasing over time. Even a small virtuous or non-virtuous action done, leaving a karmic seed in the consciousness, that seed can increase over time and give big results later and so forth, all those various results of karma. So that's that's one of the alternatives that's mentioned here, that you don't have to accept that. You don't have to accept alaya vijnana, foundation consciousness. You don't have to accept a mental continuum upon which a seed has been implanted. You don't have to accept non-corrosion, or how do we translate that? So, kunchi namba shebadang semgi yunang chung mi sapdang.
I think there is a typo. It's not chung, it's chu.
Right. I think you're absolutely right. Right. Chu mi, and it's not masap.
Yeah,
it's say.
Chumisawa. Yeah.
Misawa, yeah.
Yeah, chumisawa. So chumisawa means that something has become wasted or used up. How did Jimpa translate it here? Is corrosion, non-corrosion, or something like that? So Venerable Joan translated it as without thoroughly conceiving a mind basis of all, a continuity of mind, non-wastage, acquisition, and so forth. So non-wastage, non-corrosion, what that means, what does it mean? Where does the word wasted come up in the general presentation of karma? When we say karma is definite, it's increasing, it's never lost or wasted. That means once you created the karma, it remained there without being corroded, being corroded or wasted or used up or something like that, right? The karmic seed until it ripens, unless you purify it, that karmic seed will remain there without being wasted. That's with regard to Venerable Jones' translation of that Chu Misawa. Okay, so that's the transitional passage in the Basham. So here, now Lama Tsongkhapa's commentary says, here Chandrakirti states that for the standpoint with no intrinsic existence, not only is there the merit of casting eternalist and nihilistic views far away, this is the transition, there is also the merit, the good quality of the complete tenability, the complete acceptability of connecting a karma and its effect without having to resort to notions like foundation consciousness and so on. So one of those, quote, notions is one that we probably generally accept, that when you create the karma, it leaves a karmic seed in the consciousness, in the mental continuum. What do you think, Mikhail?
I have no idea what these two last ones mean, non-corrosion or non-wastage and obtainment. And I read ahead a few pages and I haven't seen any. Are we going to explain that?
Yeah, we are.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, okay.
Yeah, come on. Yeah. I'm not going to leave you in the lurch. Don't worry. What do you think, Richard?
I'm trying to understand the difference between what a karmic seed is and what a foundation consciousness would be. It would seem to me that that's pretty subtle if there's any difference at all.
So a foundation consciousness is not a seed. Foundation consciousness is that, from the Chittamatra point of view, is that when you create an action, it leaves an imprint in the alaya vijnana, in the foundation consciousness. It leaves an imprint there that will ripen. When it ripens, it will ripen both as the apprehender and the apprehended, that it will, it is the repository of those karmic seeds in a very particular way. It will become more clear in a little while. So what we're talking about here is the various means that the various Buddhist tenets have used to try to explain how the connection between a karmic action and its eventual result, right? When you talk about a seed, planting a seed of barley or rice, you can see that, that the seed has disintegrated, and once it's disintegrated, immediately you have its effect, right? But when you're talking about karma, when the seed is when the cause is disintegrated, that is like the killing or the generosity or the patience or whatever virtuous or non-virtuous action that you've done, once that action is completed, it has ceased. You would think that something that has ceased will have no efficacy afterwards, right? Won't bring about a result. So that's what we're talking about. So here, reading on from Lama Tsongkhapa's commentary, from the traditions of interpreting the treatises of the noble Nagarjuna comes this unique interpretation whereby one can still posit all effective transactions of the world, even though not even the tiniest particle of intrinsic reality exists. Or as Venerable Jones says, the way to comment on Arya Nagarjuna's text is as follows: even though there does not exist a mere atom of establishment by way of its own character, even though there's not even an atom of inherent existence, independence on this uncommon system of prasangika, a way of commenting that is admissible due to positing all agents and actions. Okay, maybe I left off a phrase there. So to help in understanding this, first of all, eliminating purgatives. Okay, so we've got note 519 in the chat. Doris, could you post the one by Cabazon? The PDF by Cabazon. We'll get to note 19 in a moment.
Venerable George,
Yes?
did you want to take a break at some point?
Yeah, I want to take a break at some point. Just let's just get this first. Doris, do you have that easily available, or is it already there and I don't see it?
You didn't share one with me by Cabazon.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there was some confusion with the PDFs that we didn't get straightened out.
Okay, sorry, that's my fault. Okay, so I will try to post that subsequently. So in Jose's book, A Dose of Emptiness, Jose Cabazon, there is a section that is talking about this subject. This is on page 334, but I'll have a PDF of it. It's or 314 rather. The explanation of how, even though we do not accept foundation consciousness, the relationship between karma and effect is still possible. I think that's nice, easy English, right? You can see my two pairs of glasses here. So let me read a little of it first, and then we'll take a break. So I'll try to get the PDF of this for you. Although the position of those who believe that entities do not exist inherently, that is, of the Madhyamikas, although the position of those who believe that the entities do not exist inherently, that is, I think he should say the Prasangika Madhyamikas, their position is that they do not accept the foundation consciousness and so forth. So that means foundation consciousness, the continuity of consciousness upon which a seed is implanted, something called non-wastage or non-corrosion, and attainment. They don't accept any of these ways that other schools use to explain how karma is connected to its effect. They nonetheless preserve the perfectly pure way the relationship between karma. They nonetheless preserve in a perfectly pure way the relationship between karma and its effects. This is as follows. Even though karma and its result may be interrupted by a period of many lives or eons, that virtuous or non-virtuous karma give rise to happiness and suffering, respectively, is something that all Buddhist schools, both upper schools of the Mahayana, lower schools of the Hinayana, they all accept that there is a definite relationship between them. We'd say that karma is definite in the sense that means it will definitely give a virtuous karma when it ripens, will definitely give a pleasant result and so forth. And here in his text, there's an opponent that says, in this regard, if the karma remains until it gives rise to its effect, it would be permanent. So you created the karma. If it remained impermanent, if it remained, once it ceased, if it remained until the effect, it would become permanent, which is not. It has to be impermanent. And as what is permanent cannot possibly be efficacious, cannot don chepa, cannot perform an action, cannot perform a what do you say? Not activity.
Perform a function.
Function, cannot perform a function. There would be no relationship between cause and effect. No relationship between cause and effect would be possible. If on the other hand, that karma passes away in the second moment of its activity, then it would not exist. Then there would exist no previously existing karma to give rise to an effect. What is more, as the passing away of the karma is a non-entity, what could the result arise from? How could the result arise from the karma? Okay, making it a little bit more complicated than need to be. So basically, let's review what was being said here. So the lower tenets, non-prasangika, say that the way to explain how a karma, once it's completed, once it's ceased, how it can still have an effect, one of the ways is that there is an imprint placed in the foundation consciousness. This is only accepted by the Chittamatra and maybe some Yogacara Svatantrika. Is that right, Paul? The Yogacara Svatantrika accept alaya vijnana?
Oh. Yes, I believe so.
Stephen is nodding subtly yes. Is that right, Stephen?
Well, I looked it up in the Princeton Dictionary, and it referenced Yogacara and Vasubandhu and Asanga as supporting that idea.
Yeah, but that's Chittamatra Yogacara. That's different from Yogacara Svatantrika Madhyamaka.
Yeah. So
which
whether,
would be the Kamala Shantarakshita Kamala Shila.
I
Okay.
think the next two paragraphs in your page talk about it.
in which page? In
The
Cabez?
pages from Cabez.
Cabez.
Yeah,
Okay.
I just sent out the PDF of those pages, Venerable George, of Cabazon.
Oh, you sent those out. Okay, thank you. Is that on the chat?
It should be.
Yeah.
Pages from Cabazon. Okay, thank you. So, yeah, we have to make that a little larger. Thank you for that, Paul. So it is in response to such an argument that different schools posit different entities to act as intermediaries between karmic cause and effect. To explain how when karma is about to cease, that is, before the second moment of its activity in which it already has ceased, karma has the potential to bring forth an effect in the future as the basis onto which those potentials are deposited. The Chittamatrans conceive of the foundation consciousness. So yeah, so he's not saying that the Svatantrika Madhyamikas. Louise, you just want to remind me about a break? Okay, yeah.
Second reminder, yeah.
But that next
Second
paragraph starts
reminder.
with the
Okay,
yoga chart.
that sounds ominous. It sounds like the IRS is sending me a second reminder about my second reminder about taking a break. Okay, so basically, so we'll get back to this after the break. So basically, there are these different ways. The Chittamatras say that the imprint is placed on the alaya vijnana, that when it ripens, it will give rise to both the apprehender and the apprehended, right? Which is their rendition of emptiness, that actually the appearance of the objects out as being external to the mind itself is illusory, that it's actually empty of that. That's one way. All of the Madhyamaka schools refute that. Then the idea that there is a karmic imprint, as Nadine had been talking about before, is commonly accepted when we talk about Lan Rim. When you create an action that leaves a karmic imprint in the mind, that karmic imprint the karmic seed is also impermanent, so there's no problem. That seed can remain for eons within our continuum, and when the right conditions arise, it can give rise to its effect. That's one way. There's also another idea that something called non-wastage, or as Jimpa says, non-corrosion, which refers to, and that will be explained here also in the coming paragraphs, first in Cabazon and then in Lama Tsongkhapa's commentary. And the last one is attainment or obtainment, is kind of like the when you've attained something, but it has not yet manifest. So some Vaibhashikas accept some idea like that. So let's take a little break. I'll go downstairs and try to. Oh no, we've already got Cabazon's PDF here, thanks to Paul. So let's just take a little break again. Okay, we had a nice little break. Most of you are back. Okay, so reading from this PDF that Paul kindly composed, I had composed the same thing, but apparently forgot to send it to Doris while giving her the suggestion that it be posted now. So that was my bad. So to explain this connection between karma and its result, the different schools posit different entities to act as intermediaries between karmic cause and effect. So the intermediary would be like the alaya vijnana that the seed is put onto, or the mental continuum upon which the seed is implanted, which is generally something that we talk about in Lanrim, or something called non-wastage, or something called attainment, to explain how when karma is about to cease. So when karma is about to cease, that means when the action is not yet ceased, but is about to cease. And then Jose says, that is before the second moment of its activity. I think the word activity is, if the karma is ceasing, it will no longer have an activity. But anyway, the second moment after it has ceased, karma has the potential to bring forth an effect in the future. As the basis onto which those potentials are deposited, the Chittamatrans, the Yogacaras, conceive of a foundation consciousness, Kunshi Nampar Shepa. So when we say Kunshi, that's short for Kunshi Nampar Shepa. Kunshi means the basis of all, you could say, and Nampar Shepa means consciousness. So that's the alaya vijnana. On the other hand, some Vaibhashikas, that's the lowest of the Hinayana philosophical schools, some Vaibhashikas who are different than the Kashmiri Vaibhashikas. So there were various divisions of the Vaibhashikas, right? The centrists, the Kashmiri Vaibhashikas were from Kashmir, where all of this fighting is going on now, right? The same area. Nagarjuna is said to have meditated and done retreat in Kashmir. When I was there as a guest of the Maharaja of former Maharaja of Kashmir, Karan Singh, at one point I took a pilgrimage to see some of those places of Nagarjuna. Anyway, so some Vaibhashikas that are not the Kashmiri Vaibhashikas believe in a substance. So when we say Zayjup, that doesn't mean Zayu, that doesn't mean substantially existent, it means just some kind of substance, which is a product. That means a product means it is impermanent, right? That is neither mind nor matter, which we know, demenduci, non-associated with either consciousness or material. So they say there's something impermanent, that they call inexhaustible. That's how Jose translates it. What the others translated as incorrigible. What did he translate? How did Jimpa translate that?
Non-corrosion.
Non-corrosion. Here it's Chumisawa, which we saw in the Tibetan text, and Mikhail had mentioned when we were looking at that paragraph how the ACIP file had the wrong spelling there. So it should be CHUD, not CHU, Chumitsawa. So there's something inexhaustible. This entity that these Vaibhashikas posit is an object different from karma. So the karma has ceased, but now it has created this Chumisawa, which is different from karma and like a contractual agreement for a loan. Bulongi Pangya. That will be coming up in Lama Tsongkhapa's commentary also. So what that means is, say that you've taken a loan from the mafia, if you're in New York, and there's even though you've received your loan, but there's some kind of debt that you owe them, and there's some kind of debt receipt, that you've received that money, something like that, which they call inexhaustible. This entity is an object different from karma and like a contractual agreement for a loan. Then among the Vaibhashikas themselves, some believe the so-called attainment, topa, or obtainment, which it's of attainment of both virtuous and non-virtuous karma. So that means you've what does it say? Attainment of both virtuous and non-virtuous karma. That means that the karma has ceased, but you've attained the result of that already in a dormant state. It's just waiting for the right conditions to come about, or obtainment like that. You've obtained the result. Again, a substance which is a product that is neither mind nor matter is a demanduchi, and which is an object different from both karmas. When it says both karmas, what does that mean? It's different from the karma that created it. What's the other karma?
Isn't it virtuous and non-virtuous?
Oh, okay. From both karmas. Okay, maybe that's what it's talking about. Yeah, thank you.
Or would it be resulting karma and causal karma?
Resulting karma with it resulting, that's what I was trying to think. Is that what he was saying? But I think Mikhail's explanation is more to the point that once the karma is ripened, it's no longer a karma, right? It gives its result. Others, such as the Sautrantikas and the Kashmiri Vaibhashikas, he writes Kashmira, we could write either way from Kashmir, they conceive of a continuity of consciousness. When it says the Sautrantikas, so that's the general explanation that's common through the Lan Rim and so forth. They conceive of a continuity of consciousness, Namshegi Gyun, Gyun means continuity, that is contaminated with, or impressed with the latent karmic potentialities, the Leki Bakshak, so that the imprints of karmic imprints are implanted upon it, or karmic seeds. Therefore, they believe that even though the karma ceases, the original action ceases, there is no contradiction in its bringing forth an effect even after a long time. That much makes sense so far? Okay. Vintu, makes sense? You came back from some event in Cupertino
Yeah,
Okay.
that's the main.
Okay. So according to the Yogacaras, the Chittamatrans, karma deposits latent potentialities onto the foundation consciousness, and those latent potentialities are the result of the karma. They are the result, and they themselves are impermanent, so there's no problem. They are changing. The evolutionary continuity of those, they're changing the continuity, which is changing of those latent potentialities, brings forth the effect. And so there's no contradiction in a previous karma's giving rise to a future effect. The contradiction. There's no kind of confusion that how could it be that the previous karma that has ceased gives an effect sometime in the future? There's a connection with that potential that's left on the alaya vijnana. According to Prasangika, after a karma has ceased, okay, when an action has ceased, and you have to understand the various examples of that when we talk about the path of the 10 non-virtuous actions, killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, and so forth. So each of them have an example of the completion of the act. So in terms of stealing, what's the completion of the act of stealing? Does anyone know? Karen knows.
Well, I was going to say you rejoice, like you steal it, you have the object, and then you're happy about it.
Right. When you think, I've got it. Got it. At that point, the action of stealing is complete. Okay. So according to the Prasangika, after a karma has ceased, there is no contradiction in the cessation of the karma bringing forth an effect, even after a long time, because the cessation of the karma is an entity, the cessation itself, or the Tibetan word shikpa, that's different than the usual word that we use, gokpa and so forth, when we talk about cessation. So the ending of that karma is an entity itself, is a functioning thing, having causal properties for how it is that the past and future are causal entities is something we have already mentioned in great detail. So he's talking about that previously in this text, he's talking about how past and future are also, from the Prasangika point of view, considered to be functioning things. That's something that in our text in the Gompa Rapsal will be explained later, how sort of in the presentation of the 3 times, all of the various tenets talk about their own tenets of what past means, what present means, and what future means. So this was already mentioned in Kedrup J's text that Jose was translating here. So then there's an opponent, or you could say a question or a qualm, to have a ripening, to have a maturation, that is, in effect, arise from the essenceless cessation of karma would entail the absurdity of unending ripening and the absurdity of nonsensically bringing forth the ripening effect. What is he saying? Can someone say that in other words?
It makes no sense to come from something that's essenceless to have an effect. It has to have some sort of an essence to have the causal.
Yeah, there has to be some kind of inherent existence there. That's always the objection of the non-Prasangika schools. How can you Prasangika talking about something which is not really there? It doesn't have any essence. Again, you can't find it. It doesn't truly exist. It's not inherently existent. How can it bring an effect? So the reply, the answer is no problem. In the immortal words of Arnold Schwarzenegger, no problemo. You know what I'm talking about? The Terminator? Anyway, there's no problem here. Usually in the Tibetan it says kyonme. There's no problem. For example, the aspect of illusory hair. So if you have floaters, there appears to be floating hair in your eye, right? The aspect of illusory hair is not the horn of a rabbit. Well, yeah. There's not really hair there in your eye, falling in your eye. There's some substance very close to the retina, so it appears to be larger because of its distance from the retina, I guess. That itself, the aspect of illusory hair, does that exist or not? What do you think, Nadine? You're nodding yes?
Yes, it exists.
Well, the floater exists, but the fact that the mind is thinking that it is actually hair, is there actually hair falling down there? You know,
No,
when
I mean the appearance exists, the floating appearance, but
right,
no hair, of course.
right. So, for example, the aspect of illusory hair and not the horn of a rabbit appears to eye consciousness affected by eye disease. So that means affected by floaters. So what is that talking about? What does that mean? There is not illusory hair. That doesn't exist. Also, the horn of a rabbit doesn't exist, right? But to the to the consciousness with floaters, to the eye consciousness with floaters, the horn of a rabbit doesn't appear. There's the aspect of of falling hair that appears. Do you catch that? Richard, what do you think? Does that make sense? Rachel?
Well, it's like the meaning generality is different, but neither of them exist. The horns of the rabbit doesn't exist. A hair does exist in conventional terms. There's
there's no hair existing there.
no, I didn't mean it that way. The meaning generality of that is something that's known, whereas the horns of a rabbit isn't even based on something that's known. That's the only piece that doesn't make sense.
So we're not talking about mental image here. We're talking about just the eye consciousness itself.
But horns of a rabbit can't exist because they don't exist in any omniscient consciousness.
Right.
Whereas
So
a hair does.
Do falling hairs exist for the person with floaters? Are there actually hairs floating? So the example that was given many times before, maybe it will come up again, when a person is eating their soup, if they have floaters, or what's the correct medical term? Doris, do you remember?
We call them floaters.
I forget.
Ophthalmia, something like that.
There's some medical term for it. Anyway, for that person, are there actually, so they might say, oh, you served me this soup with all this hair falling into it. You know, take it back. And the person says, well, there's no hairs falling down there. So those hairs that the person thinks they see, those hairs don't exist at all. They're non-existent, right? They're just imagined the same way that the horns of a rabbit don't exist, but can be imagined, right? So the example here, for example, the aspect of illusory hair and not the horn of a rabbit appears to eye consciousness. Or we could say, what appears to eye consciousness is falling hair, not the horns of a rabbit. You say, well, why are you mentioning the horns of a rabbit? You're mentioning that because they are both equal in being non-existent. Why does apparently hair appear to be falling? Because of a causal connection between that illness and what you're seeing. In the same way that there's a causal connection between an action and its result in the future. Both the illusory hair and the horn of a rabbit are similar in being non-existent. Likewise, one should understand that even though two karmas are similar in that they do not inherently exist, two karmic actions are similar in that they don't inherently exist. An effect is produced from the passing away of the karma that has not yet given rise to its ripening effect, and does not arise from the one that has already given rise to the ripening effect. Virtuous and non-virtuous karma, giving rise to happiness and suffering respectively, without there being a mixing up of the individual elements. Oh, a lot to think about here. What do you think, Mikhail?
Yeah, coming back to the falling hairs and the appearance of falling hairs. So falling hairs do not exist, but we say that the appearance of falling hairs do exist, right?
Yes.
And the definition of existence is observed by valid cognition.
Right.
So it has been ascertained by some valid cognition that someone with such a disease has an actual appearance of falling hairs.
No, it is observed by valid cognition that there are no falling hairs. So the waiter.
I'm talking about the appearance of falling hairs. That exists. So that must have been ascertained by valid cognition to exist.
Yeah. Then?
So I'm guessing that doctors or physicians have ascertained that this kind of disease actually give rise to such appearance.
I don't think so. I think that's it's due to the subjective experience of the person with floaters.
That's not valid cognition.
So we'll talk about that later. That even erroneous consciousnesses are valid with respect to some portion of its appearance, what's appearing, right?
Okay.
Richard.
I have to be honest and say that the last sentence that you read makes absolutely no sense to me in two levels. One, its own meaning, and two, as the analogy that they're trying to create with the previous sentence. I don't understand how it relates to the analogy, and I don't understand. I just simply can't parse the sentence at all.
Right. Louise,
slowly go through it as if I were 5 years old. I'd be grateful.
Yeah, I'll go through it as though we were 4 years old. Wasn't that I remember
even better.
Denzel in the elevator with Tom Hanks in the movie Philadelphia. Do you remember that? When Tom Hanks was telling him how he had the character Tom Hanks was playing to tell him how he had AIDS. Remember what Denzel said?
No, I'm sorry, I didn't see that movie.
Anyone see that movie? No,
I think it was 2 years old first, and then the jury, the guy in the jury said 5-year-old.
Okay. Anyway, in the elevator, I think Denzel was saying to Hanks about these different results he was experiencing because of having AIDS. He said, "Run that by me again, like I was a 4-year-old." So explain it just as Richard is asking. Try to figure this out. So if you have a karma that is going to bring a result, right? It will give its own result. Let me talk about it in different ways. It will give its own result. It won't give the result of some other karma, right? It will give the result that is connected with it. Here it's saying, so let's read that. That's a long sentence, I guess. It starts with, likewise, one should understand that even though two karmas are similar in that they do not inherently exist. So this is in analogy to the horns of a rabbit and falling hair to the person with floaters. They are both similar in being non-existent. Here it's saying the two karmas may be similar in that they do not inherently exist, yet an effect produced from the passing away of the karma that has not yet given rise to its ripening effect. That's what occurs, but not from the one that has already given rise to its ripening effect. So if two karmas, one that has not given rise yet, has not yet produced its effect, one karma which is already produced its effect. Here it's saying, likewise, one should understand that even though two karmas are similar in that they don't inherently exist, you don't get the result from the karma which has already given its result. You don't get a new result from that. You get a result only from the one that has not yet given its result. Virtuous and non-virtuous karma giving rise to happiness and suffering respectively, without there being a mixing up of the individual elements. Okay, I wanted to share this section from Jose's translation, Khedrubje. So Khedrubje was one of the two disciples of Lama Tsongkhapa, right? So he's the one that looks more wrathful. So this is his great treatise on the subtle points of Prasangika called A Dose of Emptiness. Okay, I think that's enough of that. Let's see. There, you can read the rest of that, and thanks for Paul for posting that. Let's continue on a little bit further because this will be gone over again in Lama Tsongkhapa's words now. Okay, so Lama Tsongkhapa's text then continues. Based on this approach, many perfect tenets emerge that are unique compared to other commentators. How does it, what does it say here? Commentators, yeah. Based on this approach, many perfect tenets emerge that are unique compared to other commentators. What are these tenets? For now, right here, these are the principal ones. So what we're about to see here, this list in Jinpa's text of 8, these are renowned in certain texts as the 8 unique tenets or the uncommon tenets of the Prasangika. Lama Tsongkhapa taught in another text these 8 what he called 8 uncommon tenets or unique tenets of the Prasangika, with a slight change in the last 2. That's in a text that was actually composed by Gyaltsabje, Lama Tsongkhapa's other disciple. The thing that we just read from Jose was from Khedrubje. Gyaltsabje, his other disciple, I should use my right hand, Gyaltsabje, his other disciple, wrote down a text that he sort of like his notes from Lama Tsongkhapa's teaching on these 8 unique factors. So there could be many, many others. Jamyang Shepa and other commentators on Lama Tsongkhapa had even longer lists of unique tenets. What they all boil down to is that because what is unique in the Prasangika presentation is that there is no inherent existence on either level of truth, on the ultimate level or the conventional level. So we could say, because the Svatantrika accept there's no inherent existence in the ultimate level, we can specify here the conventional level. There's no inherent existence on the conventional level. Because of that, people have made various errors in their tenets, the various Buddhist schools. And these are to overcome those wrong views from the Prasangika point of view. So first of all, the first one, rejecting a foundation consciousness, an alaya vijnana, that is separate from the sixfold classes of consciousness. So what does that mean? Separate from the sixfold classes of consciousness. Stephen, what does that mean?
Well, the Chittamatra posit 8 classes of consciousness, which include the 6 that we're familiar with, the 5 sense consciousnesses and the mental consciousness.
And they add 2 more.
They add 2 more, the afflicted mind and the foundation consciousness.
Right, exactly. So that's what's talking about here. So rejecting, so the Prasangika unique tenet is there's no foundation consciousness that is separate from the sixfold classes of consciousness, because one of the main reasons for positing it is to explain how these karmic imprints are continued and so forth. So that's one. Second unique tenet is a unique method of refuting reflective awareness, or what we call self-cognition, rangrik. So all of the other schools have a way of explaining memory, like how we can remember things. And often those explanations depend upon what they posit as self-cognition, that a consciousness is conscious of itself, which is called rangrik. And Prasangika says that doesn't exist, because they can explain the phenomena that the other tenets are trying to explain by rangrik. They can explain that, again, because phenomena are not inherently existent. So that these will be explained later in the text. The main one here is a refutation of the foundation consciousness. The third unique tenet here in this list of 8. So this list of 8 in Gompa Rapsel is slightly different than the list of 8 in the other texts that Lama Tsongkhapa dictated to Gyaltsab-je, or Gyaltsab-je remembered, that has 8 slightly different. But anyway, the third one is rejecting the use of autonomous syllogism to engender of the view of suchness in others. Thus, 3 rejections. What is that? Rejecting the use of autonomous syllogism to engender of the view of suchness in others. Does that make sense? Is that a typo again, Paul?
I'm not sure, because I think in that text that that Gyaltsab wrote, I think they group them together, and I seem to remember there's like a group of 3, all having to do with the I think, is it or no? Yeah,
Yeah,
I can't
that's talking about path and so forth and so on.
Right.
So here, the third one in Venerable Jones' translation is not asserting, or as Jimpa says, rejecting, not asserting that the view of suchness is generated in the continuum of a defendant of an autonomous syllogism. Okay, not accepting. Okay, so in other words, Svatantrika wants to say that you can create autonomous syllogisms. What are autonomous syllogisms? Does anyone remember? Mikhail remembers.
Yeah, it's a, if I'm correct, it's a syllogism where the elements, subject, predicate, and reason inherently exist.
Yeah, that's what Prasangika would say. So from the Svatantrika point of view, that's what Bhava Viveka was criticizing Buddhapalita. Remember, Buddhapalita wrote a commentary to the Fundamental Wisdom, and then, which was, from the Prasangika point of view, completely right. And Bhava Viveka criticized that, saying you didn't give any autonomous syllogisms to establish this. You were only using prasanga, consequences. Buddhapalita, you bad guy. And that was the beginning of this differentiation between Svatantrika and Prasangika. So here it says, is Venerable Jones' translation, not asserting or not accepting that the view of suchness is generated in the continuum of a defendant. That means you're the person that you're explaining, you're giving the logic to, the defendant here. I don't know how else to, usually we translate it a different way. The other party, by an autonomous syllogism. In other words, Prasangika does not accept that autonomous syllogisms can generate in the continuum of another party the correct view of suchness. Autonomous syllogisms are not accepted by the Prasangika. That's the main point here. Okay.
Venerable George,
Yeah.
I think that statement about 3 rejections is just saying that the first 3 in that list of 8 are things that are rejected, and then the next 5 are things that are asserted. I think that's what's going on.
Yeah, I think that's right. Thus 3 rejections. Then the 4th one, accepting external reality's existence to the same extent as one accepts the existence of consciousness. So Prasangika accepts external reality as opposed to the Chittamatra view that there's no external reality existing the way that it appears. 5th, Prasangika accepts that even Shravakas and Pratika Buddhas realize the selflessness of phenomena. That, of course, we mentioned way back in the beginning when we were talking about the beginning chapters of Gompa Rapsel, that from the Prasangika point of view, it is held that Shravakas and Pratika Buddhas do realize the emptiness of phenomena or selflessness of phenomena, not just the selflessness of persons. Then 6th, accepting that grasping at the self-existence of phenomena is a form of affliction. So the lower tenets, let's say the Svatantrika and others, grasping to the self-existence of phenomena is what? What kind of affliction is that? What kind of obstacle is that? Nirvana. That's an obstruction to omniscience, right? From the point of view of the Svatantrika, because not everyone has to achieve, from the Svatantrika point of view, to become an arhat. You don't have to eliminate that grasping. You can just eliminate the grasping to the selflessness to the self of person, grasping that the person is self-supporting, substantially existent. From the Svatantrika point of view, that's sufficient to achieve nirvana. From the Prasangika point of view, that's not sufficient. You are not an arhat if you've only realized that. There's still grasping to phenomena as being inherently existent or truly existent. So accepting that grasping at the self-existence of phenomena is a form of affliction. So that means in order to become an arhat, you have to get rid of that. That's an afflictive obstruction. Okay. And then 7th, accepting that the disintegration of things is a conditioned thing, is a functioning thing. So that means disintegration. That's how he's translating it here, shikpa. So when a karma disintegrates, it is a functioning thing. That disintegration continues sort of invisibly there, and eventually gives rise to its result in the future. And then finally, 8th one, because of this reason, accepting a unique way of defining the 3 times. So the 3 times means the past, present, and future, of course. So Thupten Jinpa's note there says, 518 says, this list should not be confused with another list of 8 found in Tsongkhapa's short work. So again, whether it's, the text is found in Lama Tsongkhapa's collected works. So you could say that Lama Tsongkhapa composed it, but it's also found in Gyaltsab Je's collected works, where he acted as the scribe or the person who listened to the teaching of Lama Tsongkhapa and then wrote it down. There, in this other text that we're talking about, the last 2 are replaced by a rejection of the notion of intrinsic characteristic, the rejection of inherent existence, and finally, a unique explanation of the way of Buddha's exalted wisdom, his gnosis, perceives the world. So this will come up in the final chapter of the text on the resultant grounds, how the Buddha realizes phenomena. Thus, this second list contains 4 negative tenets and 4 positive tenets, whereas, as Paul pointed out in the text here, it says, after the first 3, it says 3 rejections. So this has 3 negatives and 5 positives, and the other list has 4 negatives and 4 positives. So in this regard, there we go. So there is 2 different PDFs that are on the chat right now. One is called Note 519, Essence of True Eloquence. So Thupten Jinpa makes note just after this that Lama Tsongkhapa had talked about these things in the Essence of True Eloquence and in the Lanrim Chemo. So those 2 PDFs that say Note 519, one says Essence of Eloquence, and one says Note 19, LRC, that means Lanrim Chemo. So those are reference for you to go to investigate further. You have it right at your fingertips. You don't have to go to the bookstore and buy the books if you don't already have them, or look for them. They're right there, ready. Kind of like the Lanrim is said to be like a meal. The sutras are said to be like raw food. The shastras are said to be like the food that's been partially processed. And the Lanrim is like the meal already cooked and ready, placed before you, ready to eat, right? So you've got the PDFs there ready to eat. So they will come in the next paragraph. It says, of these, the first is presented in the present section of the root text. That means refutation of Alaya Vijnana. How rejecting self-awareness, reflective awareness, is related to non-acceptance of intrinsic existence will be explained later in this text. I have already explained extensively elsewhere how disavowing autonomous syllogism is related to the rejection of intrinsic existence. And that note 519 refers to these 2 PDFs that are posted up there. Note 19 says, 519 says, this alludes to Tsongkhapa's own discussion in works such as the Special Insight section of the Lanrim Chemo. And he gives the pages there. It's actually 267 to 275, not 257 to 275. And in the text Essence of True Eloquence, which we have taken that PDF from Robert Thurman's version. And then finally, a brief explanation will be presented here as well. How acceptance of external reality is also derived from such rejection will be explained later. Okay, so there is one other PDF Doris, could you post the one of Ruig?
Is that the complete text?
Yes.
Okay. Just give me a moment.
Yeah. So David Seyforth Ruig. Is Ruig still alive? Does anyone know?
I think so. I think he's really old. I think he's in his 90s. I think he lives in Italy now somewhere.
Somewhere strange like Italy, where Diana is just coming. So, yeah. So David Ruig was, I'm not sure why they don't say David. They always say David Seyforth. Maybe that's some family tradition. So he's an incredibly great scholar. So Doris has posted a PDF of this text that I had, but Paul kindly resent it to me. So this is, it looks very small. It's the second part of this text. Ruig has a totally exhaustive translation of the 8 difficult points or the unique points of the Prajnanika in this other text that Lama Tsong Khapa composed, not the 8 points here in the Gompa Rapsel. But I thought those of you who are aficionados of this would like to take a look at that. It has more information that you probably want in the footnotes, right? He's got footnote about everything and footnotes on the footnotes. So that text says, what does it say here in its title? Tu prolegmena. Prolegmena. What are prolegmena? Does anyone know? Diana, do you know?
No, although I'm guessing related to prologue, meaning that which comes before the main text.
Yeah, some kind of explanatory explanation. Tu prolegomena to the Madhyamaka philosophy. So he's mentioning, so he gives a translation of, in the first part, some parts of Prasanapada, Chandrakirti's commentary. But then here, Tsongkhapa, Losang Drakpa, Gyaltsab Dharma Rinchen's Kane or Kane Geiki Zinti. So Kane means difficult points, and Ge means 8, Zinti means notes. So that's the translation. So in the second half of that, which is the main part of the text, you have all of David Ruig's translation of that. And Paul, would you be kind enough to put the Tibetan for, I think Mikhail at least might appreciate that, the Tibetan text of what? The Tibetan text of this text that Ruig has translated. So you can see the actual Tibetan that might be this long, and then Ruig's commentary is pages long because he's got many, many notes explaining it. So I think that'll be up there in a second. Okay, so we're going to end there today. We're going to dive into these 8 difficult points, or same thing, 8 unique tenets, 8 uncommon tenets, 8 difficult points of the Prajnanika. They're all referring to a list of 8 things. And then there are other lists that have other tenets that are unique to the Prajnanika. Other people tried to bring on. So Paul, did you post that to the chat? I don't see it. I see Ruig. I think that's the one that Doris put. Mintu, what do you think?
Yeah, I have a quick question about the one of the 8 tenets.
Yeah.
So the one about the foundational consciousness being not a separate consciousness in the Prasangika system. So does it mean that the foundational consciousness still be one of the 6? Maybe it will be like a subcategory of one of the 6 or something.
So the Prajnanika doesn't accept the alaya vijnana as existing. As a separate consciousness from the 6 that are commonly accepted. There's usually 6 consciousnesses, the 6th one being mental consciousness. So the mental consciousness has a function like the alaya vijnana, but because Prasangika doesn't accept that form, that a consciousness that perceives blue and the blue, Prasangika doesn't accept that they're different, that they are the same, that they arise from the same seed. There's no need of an alaya vijnana. So that's something that we'll discuss more in discussion group and in the subsequent teachings. So Paul has put up there this text. Will it open up in, what is that,
It's just a flat text file with Tibetan in Tibetan script. I think there's some XML tags in there.
Oh, yeah, there it
ignore
is.
that.
It's open. So you can see there, it will have the whole Tibetan text in Tibetan for those of you who are courageous enough to dive into that. Okay. So we've gotten a lot to chew today. I hope your jaws are not too tired. Anyone have a observation or question, Doris? What do you think?
Just a housekeeping question. That text, the full text by Ruig, can we post that publicly?
What do you think, Paul? That's on the internet as freely available?
Well, I mean, it's on some part of the internet probably, but I'm not sure. It might, if it's still in print, I probably should not. But
So that publishing house where is it, in Austria or
I
someplace?
think that's the Vienna. Yeah, I think they're still.
So that text, if you try to buy it, what does it cost? $280 or something like
And
that.
I think it's not so bad. It's probably like 40 or 50.
Oh yeah, okay. So I will try to just take out the section on the 8 unique points and post it to you, Doris, to put up on our site, just to avoid any kind of copyright infringement, that we took the whole book and made it available to everyone.
So not even posted in the protected materials?
Yeah, wait on the protected materials. I will just take the second half of the book, so it doesn't have the whole book, and we can put that in protected materials.
Actually, looks like you can get it for 10 euros from
even 10
the Vienna website. Here, I'll put the
That's
link.
good. I thought it
in
was
chat. Well, I think this might be an ebook.
Okay, that's
or maybe it is the paperback. It's
that's
hard
good.
to tell.
So that if anyone's interested to have the actual, either the physical or the ebook. Okay, any questions before we finish? How are we doing? Don, is your head exploding? You're muted. You unmuted and you muted immediately. You're still muted. There you go. Oh, you're muted. You unmute and then you mute immediately. Just do it once. There you go.
My head is a little swollen, but not exploded yet.
It's swollen but not exploded. That's good. Rachel, you okay?
Yeah, thanks.
A lot to chew on. Okay,
Fine.
Stephen, any thoughts before we finish? Stephen?
Well, I'm still pondering an entity arising from a cessation. That to me is something I'm working to get my head around.
Right. So this is the uncommon tenet that a disintegration maybe is a better word for that. The Tibetan word shikpa. That means when something is disintegrated. Usually, you would think when something is disintegrated, it's got no efficacy any longer. It's just gone, right? It's disintegrated. But from the Prasangika point of view, the disintegration of a karmic action itself still continues on you can say invisibly. There's nothing there. It's not implanted in the conscious. No need to implant it in the consciousness or so forth, or to talk about something called obtainment or non-wastage. That acts as a functioning thing. And so it's good that you are perplexed by that, because that's a very difficult, when we talk kane, difficult points, that's a difficult point of the Prasangika. Okay, so let's dedicate the virtues that we've created, as we've gone some effort to do that at the beginning, to create a motivation. Due to these virtues, may I quickly become a Guru Buddha and lead all migrators without exception into that very state. Due to these virtues. And then that's an actual dedication. Now, this next verse is a prayer that we can think of as a dedication. Due to these virtues, may the supreme precious bodhicitta that has not arisen in my mind and in the mind of others arise and grow, and may that bodhicitta that has arisen not diminish, but increase evermore. And then again for our Guru Lama Zopa Rinpoche, peerless teacher and assembly of children of the conquerors, Shravakas, Pratika Buddhas, Conqueror Losang, father and sons, together with your lineage, all the objects of refuge of the infinite realms, please bestow now, here and now, the virtue and goodness to accomplish this prayer. In upholding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings through explanation and practice, you, Lama Zopa, wore the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable, venerable Guru, to you I make request. Sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, while striving exclusively for the welfare of the victorious one's teachings, the conqueror's teachings, the Buddhist teachings, and for the benefit, the welfare of mother living beings, you suddenly departed to peace. At this I lost hope. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truths of the oceanic blessings of the three jewels, and by the truth of the great waves of bodhicitta of the bodhisattvas, that means that the fact that they have great waves of bodhicitta, may the smile, due to these truths, the power of the truth, may the smile of a new reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for us fortunate disciples. So far we know, we've heard that His Holiness has verified that Lama Zopa's reincarnation has been born in Nepal, if I recall, but we haven't seen the smile yet. So praying for that. Then finally, you who are my eyes for viewing all the infinite scriptures, my spiritual friends, spiritual supreme gateways for the fortunate ones traveling to liberation, the gateway to lead to liberation, engaging with skillful means, moved by mercy, both love and compassion, illuminating spiritual friends, I make this request. Please live long and stable lives. Okay. Wow. So my jaw, yeah, a lot to chew on there. It's like chewing on one of these energy bars that the army gives you, that's been in the canteen for 4 years or something like that. It's so hard to chew. Thank you for your attendance and your good questions and your attention. Look forward to seeing you on Monday. You can take a look at these various texts. Yeah, we've got a lot to continue on. So see you then. Take care.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Venerable
Venerable George.
Thank you,
George.
Venerable.